Hey, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching In Depth.
On Now You Know.
All right, so this In Depth is on the U.S. carbon tax. We recently did an In Depth a few months ago on the carbon tax that's being proposed here in Massachusetts. And so this one's even a bigger deal, right? Because this is for the entire United States.
It's a federal one.
This is a federal one. So this is a plan by two senators right now. Sheldon Whitehouse, who is a senator from Rhode Island, and Brian Schatz, who is a senator from Hawaii. They are proposing a $49 per metric ton fee on greenhouse gas emissions. This would bring in an estimated $2.1 trillion of revenue over the next 10 years as they tax carbon on these emissions. I want to talk about a carbon tax. I think it's confusing to a lot of people. First of all, it doesn't tax you as a person. Okay,
Right.
It taxes wherever the emissions come from. So where would that be?
So this would be from huge polluters. So that would be, coal plants and jets and such.
Gotcha. So they would pay this tax, and then the tax would be distributed in a couple ways. So the first thing it would do is they're proposing that it would help bring down the corporate tax. So this one thing that the Trump administration wants to do, that right now the corporate tax is at 35%. The Trump administration would like to get it down to 15%. This proposal would actually allow it to get down to 29%. Doesn't get it all the way down, but it helps quite a bit.
Yep.
So the revenue goes to bring down the corporate tax, but it also goes to your pocket.
My pocket?
Yeah, your pocket. Basically, a $550 credit, a federal tax credit, a refundable federal tax credit.
Right.
Now, what does that mean?
This means that when you get your refund check, if you get a refund check, it is $550 heavier. Or if you are paying your taxes and you still have money to owe, $550 of it will magically disappear.
And
So-
if you're filing jointly, that's $1,100. And this
Right.
would be linked to inflation, so it'll go up every year.
Right.
So basically, every American would get a check. That's why it's not really a tax in the traditional sense.
Right. It's a tax on,
Carbon.
and the people who make it, and it's basically going back to the people who it affects.
Right. So now let's talk about one of the biggest arguments against it has always been this, well, politically it'll never fly. But there's been a lot of big, hard-hitting Republicans and people and conservatives, people who normally are against taxes, who come out in favor of this because it isn't really a tax in the traditional sense. For instance, former Secretary of State James Baker, he made the case that a fee on the burning of fossil fuels coupled with a monthly dividend to American households would be good for the economy, as well as the planet. So the legislation would call for a tax which would increase annually by 2% to be collected at its source, as we said, coal mines, oil refineries, ports of entry. The rest of the revenue would come back to taxpayers as this refund. Money would also be devoted to veterans and to coal country for job training programs. So when people argue, this would kill coal, well, the point is to make it kill coal,
Right.
but it's to transition those people away. I mean, coal's not going to last forever no matter what you do, right?
Right.
So the point is to transition them to something like working for solar, working for wind. Now, the idea of a carbon tax is not a new idea. This dates back to the 1920s when a British economist, Arthur Pigou, observed that some goods had social costs that society ended up paying for, like alcohol or pollution.
Right. And I mean, this goes beyond that in stuff that we tax. I mean, cigarettes, for example.
Perfect example.
Terrible cost to society. I mean, you have people that become very unhealthy and society has to take care of them.
And for decades, they weren't being taxed properly.
Right. And so you could get cigarettes very cheaply, which the cigarette companies liked, but now we tax them quite heavily. And it's a disincentive for people who smoke to smoke. At some point, it just becomes financially disadvantageous to do so, and so you might consider quitting just for that reason.
Right.
And secondly, it provides revenue for, awareness and other things like that.
In health.
In health.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, there's precedent here, and it works.
Right.
Some conservative heavyweights, like Arthur Laffer, often called the father of supply-side economics, and Darren Woods, the chief executive of ExxonMobil.
That's an oil company.
Yeah, he's thrown his intellectual and political heft behind the idea.
Wow.
Economists argued that the revenue from a carbon tax could be used to reduce or eliminate income, payroll, or other taxes.
Wow.
So this could actually reduce, like we talked about, corporate corporate taxes, it could reduce a lot of other taxes.
Right. I mean, the check in the mail basically is reducing your taxes.
And many business leaders say it's preferable to cap and trade programs. Here's a quote: "There are Republicans willing to work with us, and not just a few. They just need the prospect of safe passage through the political kill zone." That's Senator Whitehouse. What he's basically saying is, if you can just get people to the table and make it known that it's okay to talk about this, they're willing to talk about it. But if they think, oh, you're talking about a tax, I can't do taxes, my constituents won't vote for me.
Right.
So that's why we're talking to you right now. You are the constituents.
Right.
You are the ones who control your congresspeople and senators. Write to them, call them, and tell them that you are interested in this, because this is a way of bringing money back to us and stopping things like coal burning, which are killing your lungs.
Right. And the planet.
Here's a quote from Eli Lerher, who is the president of the R Street Institute, which is a conservative think tank. "I won't say it's likely, but it's more likely than it has been in some time. And if the stars align perfectly, I could see a carbon tax happening."
Wow. There are some arguments against this. One would be, oh, if you put a fee on burning carbon, then my price of electricity goes up.
Yes, and it will. If you're getting that electricity from coal, it's true, your electricity will go up. But what's going to happen is it's going to shift investment into solar, wind, and other clean energy, which is cheaper. So even though there might be a little bump in the road for the price in the beginning, eventually that's going to bring your prices down lower faster than they would have.
Right. And keep in mind that you're getting this $550 check in the mail, which will kind of make up for any added cost to your electric bill. It won't be anywhere near the addition in price, but it'll definitely make up for any of that. And yeah, it's basically disincentivizing burning carbon. It's incentivizing clean, renewable energy. That's the whole point. And I think it's something that we can all get behind, no matter which way you're approaching this from.
Right, because, I mean, even if you don't want to talk about global warming, all right, let's just take that off the table for a second. When you burn coal, you are putting pollutants into the atmosphere that are affecting your health. So even if you don't want to talk about the health of the planet, you're talking about your health. The World Health Organization has numbers that are in the millions of people that die every year of premature deaths. We're seeing it in places like China every day, where they have to wear masks just to go out of the house.
Right. And this is basically anywhere that anyone is burning coal, you're having these issues. Now, obviously in China, it's way worse because there were less regulations for a very long time.
And we're seeing places like Europe already instituting this kind of policy, and Massachusetts could be one of the first states to implement it. So the big question here is whether a state is going to do it first or the federal government's going to do it first. I say, let's just go for the federal government. That way we'll cover the entire country. And history always shows that we look back at past generations and we go, why didn't they see that sooner? Why didn't they do something about it sooner?
Why didn't they think that smoking was bad? Why did they listen to, the ads saying that doctors approved smoking and stuff like that? Thank you so much for watching this episode of In Depth. We really appreciate you watching. If you liked it, please hit that subscribe button and then hit the bell next to it. That will let you know when we have new episodes coming out. Like tomorrow, we're going to have a new episode coming out. It's going to be our Tesla Time News.
Episode 50.
Episode 50, so go check that one out. If it is tomorrow, then you can check it out today.
Wow.
How about that? And actually, any day after tomorrow, you can also check it out today because it'll be there.
I'm very confused.
That's how math works, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider supporting us on Patreon. It's very difficult to do this show. It costs money. We would really appreciate your support for the content that we put out. And thank you so much for watching. Now you know.